gotten to this place where Jesus is showing the true meaning of the law. And it's not Jesus against Moses, but it's Jesus against the crazy, false, outwardly interpretation of Moses by the Pharisees. And we're going to see, last week we talked about murder and anger being the same thing. Hey, just to let you know, so if everybody's like, every time I get angry, I murder somebody and I'm going to hell. That's not what I was saying, okay? That's not what it breaks it down to. The anger that lives in you and that grows, that causes you then to outwardly, freak out on people and things like that. That's the stuff that's really bad. Ephesians 4, says you're going to get angry, but when you do, just don't live there and don't let it continue to grow in you. Okay, tonight, let's talk about adultery. All right. Matthew chapter 5, starting verse 27. You have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery, but I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than your whole body to go into hell. I love this teaching so much. There's a whole group of people that are like, okay, well, the murder one, I could totally relate because of the anger thing, but this one, no way. I don't even have to deal with this one, right? Ladies, right? Ladies don't even have to deal with this one because it says, Because it says simply in there, if I tell you that if anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. See what I'm saying? But I want you to at least open your minds here because I think that we're going to look at it a little bit different. And ladies, you do actually have to deal with this one. Just spoiler alert. Get ready, okay? So if you're taking notes, number one, you can write down the word examine. Examine, okay? And remember, he starts out with the compare and contrast from last week. This is what you've heard, but I tell you this. Jesus says, this is what has been handed down to you over and over by this repetition of truth. This is what the Pharisees have told you over and over, but this is what it actually means. So what they said is adultery is wrong. But anything and everything up to actually committing the act of adultery is not wrong. That's the way the Pharisees saw it. And as long as you don't go through with the actual act of adultery, you're in the clear. So you can look and touch and think and say and do whatever you want as long as you don't actually commit the act of adultery. And Jesus is like, no, that is not right because it's about what's going on inside. It's about what's going on in your heart, on your heart. And whether you like or to hear it or not, it's about your eyes as well. It's about what you're looking at and what you're focused on. Because the origin of lust goes back to the eyes. It starts now. This is specifically looking at a woman lustfully. I just have a side note. You know how sometimes they want to change the Bible to make it a little more gender neutral in some regards. Okay, I'll give you an example. The NIV, it was I don't know, updated or whatever, or made originally. I don't remember which one. I think updated in 1984. And Psalm 1 said, "Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of wicked or stand in the way of sinners or sit in the seat of mockers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night." The newer version of that says, "Blessed is the person who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked or stand in the way of sinners or sit in the seat of mockers, because their delight is in the law of the Lord." You see what I'm saying there? That way we're talking about everybody. It's not just the men who get the blessing. But I've never really heard any ladies talk about this verse. Why can't we get this one straightened out to talk about both men? And, they don't bring this one to the table very often, right? Anyway. This passage speaks to looking at a woman lustfully, but here's what you have to know. This can go both ways. First of all, women can look at men lustfully. That can actually happen. So it can go both ways. Additionally, it's more about looking at something lustfully than it is about simply committing the act of adultery, and that's what Jesus is kind of opening up here. Anything, and I want you guys to get this, anything we run after that is not God could be considered adultery. Think about it. When the Israelites are running after other gods, what does God say? You adulterous people. You are prostituting yourselves to other gods. You are basically lusting after things that are not me, right? You know, if you if you want to read something great this week, read the book of Hosea. Hosea is a prophet, and God is basically wanting to prophesy to the people of Israel. And so basically what he does is he's like, Hosea, I want you to marry a promiscuous woman and have kids with her. And then that promiscuous woman goes off and cheats on Hosea, becomes adulterous with other men, and then God's like, now you need to go take your wife back and bring her back into your home. And this is a repeated pattern it talks about Hosea, because what God's trying to speak is this is exactly what his people do. God is like, I am giving everything for you, right? You are my bride. I am the bridegroom. We are married. We are in a covenant relationship where I want you to only be looking at me. I want you to only be chasing after me. I want you to only be, even lusting after me, which is a passionate and overmastering desire or craving. That's what the definition of lust is. I want you to be all of that towards me. This is what God says. And we, like is it Gomer? Is that her name? Hosea's wife? Yeah, Gomer. We, like Gomer, just run out and fool around all the time with other things instead of God. And so when it's talking about committing adultery here, and Jesus is breaking this down, obviously it's a very specific thing, but what he's talking about is a far bigger picture. Because what we lust after is sometimes us running away from God. I think often we are running after other gods. And he, I think, is telling us, why do you continue to do that? Why do you continue to commit adultery against me? We think of lust as purely sexual, but again, the definition is a passionate or overmastering desire or craving. It doesn't even have to be, for the sexual part of it. Bottom line, I should have saved this one until Youth Bible Exploration, but it just came in order, so sorry. Bottom line, we need to spend time examining what we're focused on. Because if we're focused on stuff that's not God, we are falling in this trap. Our eye could easily be causing us to lust, to have a passionate or overmastering desire or craving for something. Now, I want you guys to get this. Like, when Rebecca and I got married, there's an agreement when you get married, right? It's like, this is it. This is me and Rebecca. That's it. Nobody else gets to be part of this right here, right? Especially in that arena. And when we come to Jesus, when we come to God and we accept Jesus in our heart, it's the same thing. It's supposed to be the same thing. It's actually kicked up a notch because it's God. And he is like, listen, here's the deal. Adultery against your husband or wife is very, very bad. But having another God before the one true God, that's actually worse. And you might think, well, how's that worse? Well, let's look at the 10 Commandments. Number 1 is not, do not commit adultery. Number 1 is, you shall have no other gods before me. God breaks it down right off the bat. Like, look, this is important. So we need to examine what we've been focused on, because if we're focusing on things and we're keeping our eyes on things that were causing us to have an intense or overmastering craving or desire for that other than God, we are committing adultery. We are being adulterous toward God. Okay? So, see, ladies, I told you it was going to be awesome for you too. All right, number 2. You write down the word your, or your. Yeah, just Y-O-U-R, your. Your heart is where the problem is. Your heart is where the problem is, okay? Yours. It's not someone else's heart that's the problem. It's yours. Because, again, we like to think that we're not adulterous, so we have to look around to see who is. But we are. Now, I'm going to ask some questions. Do you have a choice in what you think about? Yeah, absolutely, right? I mean, thoughts sometimes pop in your head, but you get to choose whether you think about those or not. When I'm talking about thinking about, sometimes crazy stuff pops in your head. Anybody just crazy stuff pops in your head sometimes? Absolutely, that happens to all of us, right? But to think about it, to spend time like actually thinking about it, you get to choose that. Now, is what you think about based on what you see? I think a lot of the time it is, right? Like, if I'm standing somewhere and not really thinking about anything, and then I see somebody I know, I'm going to be thinking about that person because I just saw them, because our eye triggers stuff in our head, right? So what we think about is based on what we see a lot. So what we're looking at can have an impact on what's going on in our heart and our head. Yes? Okay. So then it makes sense that you spend time dealing with you. Because I think we still have this tendency to want to deal with other people. But we don't need to worry about what everyone else is thinking about, and we don't need to worry about what everyone else is looking at. We need to be concerned with ourselves. See, because I know a lot of times, read a passage like this about committing adultery, and even if you look lustfully at a woman with your, in your eyes, you're committing adultery. Then you'll have a lot of the ladies in the house now keeping an eye on their husbands to see, are you looking lustfully at somebody? Because I need to make sure that we're on the same page here, because we just read that. And if I see your eyes looking lustfully at something, then we're going to have words. That's not your job, okay? Ladies and guys, it could go the other way too. Not your job, either way. So what you're looking at, what you're thinking about, that's important. Now, some people would take this to mean that we then have to go crazy pendulum swing over here, right? Some people would take this to mean I should never look at a person of the opposite sex ever again for the rest of my life, because I don't even want to risk it. That's ridiculous, okay? That's not even possible, I don't think. We have to look at each other. Like, literally, that would mean every lady in here could not be looking at me right now. Do you know how awkward that would be for me talking to you and you're not looking at me? Right? Did Jesus look at women? Absolutely. Talked with them, had full conversations with them. Woman by the well, lady caught in adultery, Mary and Martha were friends of his. I mean, he talked to women all the time. All the time, Jesus was talking to women. All the time. Did Jesus sin? No, absolutely. Therefore, he never committed adultery, not even in his heart. He never looked lustfully at a woman. Correct? So you can look at someone of the opposite sex and not sin. Yes? Absolutely. Come on. I want to read this to you. It says, Jesus, though tempted in all ways, endured such temptations, but did not yield to such sin. He was able to see women as other than objects for his gratification. He was tempted in all points as we are, but desire was expelled by a mighty power of a pure love to which every woman was a daughter, a sister, or a betrothed, a sacred object of tender respect. That's how we should look at each other. Ladies looking at dudes, dudes looking at ladies, sacred object of tender respect. We should look at each other the way Jesus looks at us. Dearly loved, child of God, somebody who's already betrothed, right? And this goes for both sides, right? We get to decide how we look at people. You get to decide how you look at people. And sometimes it's like we're so shallow that we see everyone based on what they're wearing, what their hair looks like, or how much they weigh, or if you think they're good looking or not. And if we operate like that, we have a huge problem. I mean, an enormous problem. And so tonight, and I'm not saying that's everybody. I'm not saying across the board everyone's like this. But what I am saying is tonight, you deal with your stuff. You deal with your eyes, your heart, your mind. What you're thinking, what you stare at for too long, what you think about too long. You deal with that stuff. If that's something that you struggle with, we should see how utterly wrong that is. And you should choose to do something else. Okay? Number 3, and this is where kind of rubber meets the road here, exterminate. This is where we start cutting stuff off and poking stuff out. It's going to be awesome. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. This is not a literal interpretation. Okay? Just saying. This is not a literal interpretation. Jesus is not saying to actually gouge your eye out. Okay? He is making a point. There was this early Christian named Origen. Like he only had one name, Origen. It wasn't Origin like the beginning. It was Origen, so it's different. Anyways, based on this passage, he castrated himself. And if you younger people don't know what that means, talk to your parents. Do you know what he did after that? He still lusted after women. The trouble with that is it's the same trouble we have today. Literal interpretation of this passage doesn't go far enough. If it was as easy as cutting off a hand or gouging out an eye, seriously, that would make it easy. Literal interpretation of this passage is not enough. It's not enough. Because even if you did cut off both hands or gouge out both eyes, you could still sin with your mind and in your heart. Right? Mutilation is not going to serve the purpose. I'm just letting you guys know, okay? Let's take that off the table. It might prevent the outward act, but it will not extinguish the desire. He says, better to lose this part than to be thrown into hell. And again, he's emphasizing this here. He's stressing the point that one must be willing to completely sacrifice for obedience. We must be willing to sacrifice for obedience. Sometimes it's like we have to make the choice. We have to decide. Job 31, verse 1, Job says, I've made a covenant with my eyes, so I will not sin against you. Basically, what Job is saying is, I've talked to God, and I've said, these eyes, they're not going to do it. I'm not going to look lustfully onto a woman. I'm not going to look at stuff I'm not supposed to look at. I'm going to make this choice. I'm going to exterminate even this idea that it's okay to do that by making this covenant with God. Do you see what he did there? He didn't gouge out any eyes. He didn't cut off any hands. He simply said, this is for real. There's not going to be any compromise here. If part of our life is given over to sin, we must be convinced that it's more profitable for that part to die than all of us to be thrown into hell. That's what Jesus is saying here. Now, we've been talking about lust, and I think some of us in this room might be like, oh, we're off the hook, but this is any sin. Any sin. Anything that is causing you to draw away from God, anything that's causing you to miss the mark of where he wants you to be, it's talking about doing violence to that thing, getting rid of it, like doing serious violence. I mean, the picture of gouging out an eye or cutting off a hand is kind of brutal. You know what I'm saying? Because Jesus is emphasizing, look, if there's something in your life that is drawing you from God, destroy it. I remember, if you guys ever watched the movie Fireproof, he's having some trouble on his computer. And I don't remember exactly if it was like pornography. I think it was about a boat. Like he really wanted this boat, so he was on this computer looking at this boat all the time. Either way, he ends up taking the computer, and it's like, this is an older movie, so it's not just like a flat screen. It's one of those big screen computers, you know, and the big tower thing. And he takes it out and he throws it in his garbage can. And his neighbors are looking at him like he's crazy. But it's like, if this thing is causing me to draw away from what God has called me to do, it's got to go. It's got to go. I was listening to a guy the other day talking about flip phones, and, you know, people get made fun of, you know, if you got a flip phone, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, what are you, from the 90s? Look at your flip phone. But there's actually men who have decided, I'm going to go back to a flip phone, because the smartphones that has access to everything that I could ever want to look at is a problem for them. It's doing violence. You might get made fun of, but hey, I'm okay. Better to get made fun of than to be thrown into hell, right? I was just trying to bring it to the 21st century there. Okay. Basically, if there's something in your life that's causing you to sin, do away with it. I think that this is probably one of the biggest reasons that a lot of Christians don't experience true breakthrough in their lives, because they hang on to stuff that is a compromise. It might not even be like a sin, biblically speaking, but it's a compromise. It's a compromise. It's a little bit less than what God has for us. God has this for us, but we're doing this. It's not hurting anybody. I mean, it might be something just completely dumb. Not hurting anybody, not like all hidden. You're not like, ooh, I'm the only one that knows about this. I mean, it just might be a compromise. And I think that's why we don't experience these things. And what Jesus is saying is those compromises, why would you want them? And when we're unwilling to exterminate the thing that continues to cause us to draw away from God, we're going to continue to be drawn away from God. We're called in the Bible to do violence to our sin, to the things that continue to hold us back from becoming who God has intended us to be, and the things that continue to keep holding us back from drawing closer to Him. We're called to do violence to it, right? Listen to this. Hebrews chapter 12. Verse 1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Throw off. What is that a picture of? I saw a picture of this week. It's one of those videos that's gone viral. I don't know if you've seen it or not. The guy with the bobcat. Have anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay, if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's this guy. Basically, this guy's at his truck, and he's putting something in the driver's side. His wife comes walking out. It's a picture, you're probably down from their garage or something. This wife walks out. She's got like a animal carrier, right, with, I don't know, some kind of cat or something in it. And you can see her kind of stop. And then all of a sudden, I didn't hear any noise or anything. All of a sudden, you can see something jump on her. She's in between the cars. Her husband runs around to the other side. He can't really see what's going on. And then he comes back around, and he is holding up, like this, a bobcat. A bobcat. And it ends up, I guess, later in the story, the bobcat was rabid. Like, they had to get a bunch of shots and stuff. Anyways, he's holding up this bobcat, and you can see, it's like he's fighting with it. And then this guy just throws this thing across the yard, a bobcat. And I'm just like, what is going on? And then the bobcat starts running back, like coming back, and he's chasing it. I mean, he's like, this guy was legit. I was like, wow. But seriously, watch it. If you can, I don't know. Seth, can you pull that up? Let's see if we can get that up there. Bobcat. Bobcat. Guy in a bobcat, throwing him off. Okay, Seth's going to try to see if we can figure this out, because it's pretty amazing. Anyways, that's the picture I want you to get. If we can get this up here, it's going to be awesome. That's the picture I want you to get with your sin, that we are throwing it off. It's not even like you can just tell. It's not like he puts the bobcat down. You see him chuck this thing across the yard. It's amazing.
This memory began. Good morning.
Are we going to be able to get that? Oh, yeah, that's it. Okay, check it out. Before you go, don't go yet. So he's over here doing something. Right here, his wife's going to walk out, okay, in between those cars, and you're not going to really see what's going on. But then right here in the yard, then you're going to see what's going on. Okay, play it. Play this video. This is awesome. I don't know if there is sound, but, oh, yes, then we want sound, because I haven't heard it. Is there any cussing, Michael? Okay, go.
It started out as a typical Friday morning.
They washed my car.
Happy and Christy Wade leaving their house to take their senior cat, Caroline Faith, to the vet. When Christy came out of their garage, she heard a growl.
I knew it was cat because I know what a cat sounds like. It sounded like a very angry cat.
So when Christy backs up to see what it is,
The face of this bobcat came around the corner of the car.
Christy tried to run between the cars to the street.
Bit my hand, and I kind of drug it with me, and it crawled up my back.
Christy's husband, Happy, heard the screams and immediately knew something was hurting his wife. He came running around the car.
I just remember seeing this face
and it was trying to bite her right there in the side of the neck. And so I shoved my arm in, and that's how I ended up with it like this. I'm holding this thing up, and at that point I say, oh my God, it's a bobcat. I really didn't know what it was.
Happy says as soon as he saw it was a bobcat, he knew something had to be wrong with the animal.
I knew that it had to have had something, and so I figured it was rabies.
The cat bit Happy 3 times while he was holding it.
And I could literally feel the tooth on my knuckle.
So he tried to get it as far away from him and his wife as he could.
I thought, I'll throw it this way, 2 options. One, it'll see an escape route, and it'll take off, or it'll stop just a moment where I can get a good shot at it.
The cat then comes back in the direction of the house instead of to the woods. Happy finally shot the animal because he knew something was wrong with it. Tests later confirmed the bobcat had rabies.
In my head, I knew it had already attacked 2 people. If it attacked somebody else and I didn't do something, morally, it would have bothered me for a long time.
Christy and Happy say they are grateful they were together that morning.
He saved my life, and I don't know where I'd be or what sort of shape I'd be in right now had he not been here.
Okay, here's the deal. I totally didn't watch the whole video. I didn't realize the guy pulled a gun out and shot that thing too. That is way better. You want to talk about dealing with sin? It's like kill that sucker. What, John?
This is what substitute teachers do.
Find videos? Okay, good. Good to know. I'll put that in my bag of tricks. That's what I'm talking about right there. That's how we need to deal with the sin in our lives, the things that compromise in our life, the things that are slowly eroding our relationship with God. It's the bobcat, okay? I want you to think of that. Every time there's sin, every time there's something that's compromising you, be happy. That's that guy's name, right? Did he say happy? Yeah. Be happy. Get rid of the bobcat, okay? That is going to stick in your head for a while. All right. I hope that tonight, don't commit adultery is taking a little bit bigger meaning than just, a little bit going on there. My hope is that as we move on from here, we could deal with our eyes, right? We could examine what's going on, that you could deal with you, and that we could exterminate the sin in our life systematically. Just every time one comes up, bobcat it. You know what I'm talking about? Every time a sin comes up, bobcat it. Okay? All right, let's pray. God, you're good to us. Thank you. Thank you, Lord, for this family and their safety, Lord. Thank you for the example that they've set on what we're supposed to do with our sin. And God, I pray that even tonight as we look at this topic and we don't just make it about that one portion, but that we would understand that every time that we choose something else other than you, we're committing adultery. We are being adulterous. When we put something else above you, when we think something is more important than you, when we run after something that is not you. And God, I pray that we would have that picture in our mind, that we would do violence to that stuff, that we would eradicate it, we would exterminate it by any means necessary, Lord. And I just thank you. Thank you for tonight. I thank you for everyone here, Lord. I pray a blessing. And God, we just love you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, have a great night. Thanks, Seth. Good job.